Hey, how's everyone doing? Right, so today again I've come with another folk tale. Another story. And this time I'll be telling a story, an African story. This story is from mainly, so it originated. It said it's originated from Eastern and Southern Africa areas, but we know it all across Africa, and in fact all across the world, this story. So I'm just going to go ahead and read it again. I've got it on the tablet here to read, and I hope you enjoy it like I did. And so long ago, when animals still spoke like people and wisdom walked freely across the land, there lived two very different creatures. One was the hyena, strong, loud, feared by many. When the hyena laughed, others trembled. When he walked, smaller animals made way. The other was the hare, small, quiet, quick thinking. He had no claws to fight with, no teeth to threaten with, but his mind was sharp and always awake. One year, the rains failed, the rivers shrank, the grass dried, and fruits withered on the trees. Hunger spread across the land. The animals began to tremble, each looking for a way to survive. The hyena relied on what he trusted most, and that's his strength. Yes, why not? He chased animals from their food. He bullied the weak. He took more than he needed. And for a while, it worked. The hyena grew fat, while others grew thin. Now, it comes to the hare. The hare did not challenge the hyena. He did not fight him. He did not protest. Instead, the hare watched. He watched how the hyena rushed. He watched how the hyena wasted. He watched how the hyena never planned beyond today. And the hare thought to himself, strength may win today, but wisdom decides tomorrow. African tales, I tell you. And so one evening, as the animals gathered, the hare spoke calmly. I have discovered a place, he said, where food can be found even in famine. But it is not for the impatient. It is not for the greedy. It only works for those who follow rules. The animals murmured. Hope stirred among them. The hyena laughed loudly. What rules can stop hunger? He scoffed. Show me this place. The hare looked at him carefully. You may come, he said, but only if you agree to wait, to follow instructions, and to act with discipline. The hyena agreed, not because he believed, but because he wanted more. That night, the hare led the hyena to a quiet clearing. He explained everything carefully. Where to stand, where to move, what not to touch. Above all, said the hare, you must wait until morning. The hyena nodded, but his stomach growled louder than his ears listened. As soon as the hare stepped away, the hyena thought, come on now, why should I wait? Why should I obey a small animal? Why should I delay what I can take now? So if I can have it now, why must I delay it? He rushed forward, he grabbed, he ignored every instruction. And in his impatience, he destroyed everything. The noise alerted the others. The animals gathered. The truth was exposed. The hyena stood embarrassed, hungry, and empty-handed. He didn't wait. Now, the hare returned in the morning. He followed the process. He waited. He acted with care. And the system worked. While the hyena remained strong but starving, the hare survived the famine. Now, here is the moral of the story, right? And so the elders say, power without discipline is dangerous. Intelligence without patience is wasted. But wisdom guided by self-control always finds a way. Why does this story matter? Now, when it comes to us as people, as it were, traditionally, this folk tale was told to teach leaders restraint, the young patience, powerful humility, the ambitious discipline. It was never about trickery alone. It was about self-mastery. Because in African wisdom, listen to this, I love this. Because in African wisdom, the greatest strength is not the body. It is the mind that can wait. And so when you look at it in businesses as entrepreneurs or business people, sometimes you've got to ask yourself, am I the hare or am I the hyena? Right? And so the hyena can build a strong person, you know, the loud voice, they've got capital, they're marketing everywhere. If people know them, they rush into the market, there's a lot of funding behind them, right? But that in itself doesn't, you know, mean you will succeed. It means you have the opportunity to succeed very quickly. But doesn't guarantee success. We've seen them. You've seen over the past couple of months, right? There are some fintech companies that had so much backing, financial capital backing, but they still failed. The owners have had to quit, right? Right. But then there are still examples of those who have done really well, and we know them everywhere. But I'm going to give two examples, one from Nigeria and one from Kenya, right? And that one from Nigeria, by the way, I'm not advertising here for them, but this is something I've kind of looked into, I've studied, right? Ever since we got into microfinance, 5TTMFB, I've kind of pondered about this company I'm going to mention about here now, and how they've kind of, the impact they've had in the industry. And that company is a company called InterSwitch, right? And I kind of call them the infrastructure Hare, right? Right. This company was founded in 2002, right? Currently, they have their revenue in hundreds of millions of dollars. It's a private company. Hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Hear that, right? They've got over 60 million card holders indirectly. 60 million card holders. So when you use your card in the shop, 60 million. It's insane, man. They've got institutional clients, right? Most Nigerian banks, government agencies, processors, fintechs, you know, work with them, right? And their staff strength, they've got over 1,000 employees, and they cover Nigeria core, right? And they were not in a hurry to as well go into the continent, but they have started, right? They've started to go into some selective African countries because they're starting to ask themselves this question: why must I take Naira from Nigeria and go into Ghana, and I have to first change it into dollars before I can now get the money changed back into, you know, the Ghana's cedis, or I go to Uganda or Kenya? Why must I take my Naira and change it into dollars first before I can now change that back into the Kenyan shillings and stuff like that? That's what happens in Africa. InterSwitch is asking that question. They want to change it. Why wouldn't we be able to take why wouldn't I be able to take my Naira and just go and trade in Kenya? Right? That's a massive question that should be asked, just like in any other place in the world, right? As it were, because we're in Africa, let's trade amongst ourselves. But they're answering that question, but they started from Nigeria, right? So their market role is payment infrastructure, right? Not consumer hype. Now, InterSwitch did not chase customers first or end users first, right? They built what is called the payment rails first. They spent a lot of time, money, years just investing in that rails. Now let me explain what that means, right? In a way that might make sense to you. Think about railway system, right? So when you have the railway system, the customers, use the system. So think about the railway system as money, right? How money moves, right? So the train is money, right? The customers that use money, right? And the apps for the different banks, you know, are like your ticket before you can use it, right? Before you can get on the train, you've got to use an app and stuff like that, right? But then before anybody moves from point A to point B, right? And by the way, the banks, think about the banks. The banks are like, you know, the train stations. So if I'm going to go from train station 1 to train station 2, is like the banks. So I'm going to go from one bank to the other. I'm going to move my money from one bank to the other, right? So think about it that way. Now, for that to happen, from railway station, train station 1 to train station 2, it must move on a rail, right? So InterSwitch is that rail. So they built the infrastructure rail to allow money to move, you know, seamlessly without a waste of time, confirmation, all those sort of things. So if you're going to make a payment, swipe your card, take money from ATM, all those sort of things, InterSwitch built the rail, the infrastructure that allows you to make those payments. That's insane. 60 million card users, hundreds of millions in revenue, and is from our country, Nigeria. Yeah, right. And now, so they invested first of all in the infrastructure. Now think about your own business, right? Your own business. You're in agriculture, right? Even though getting customers is important for your palm oil or your cassava or your yam, whatever, right? It's important to find customers. Now, you must also be thinking, what if I had orders from 1,000 customers? How do I pay? How do I receive payment? How do I deliver? Do I deliver on the road? Do I deliver by air? Do I deliver? So what logistic infrastructure do I have? Now, you don't have to own all these things, but you've got to, first of all, as your business, establish those routes, right? How do I move this product? How do I take payment? How do I do this? How do I do that? Right? How do I package? How do I? So you've got to, first of all, in the back office, when nobody knows you, when there is no noise, right? You've got to determine how your business would look like if you had that dream. So if I suddenly went from 2 customers, 5 customers, 10 customers to 1,000, 100,000 customers, do I have the system to be able to handle that? So that's what you need to focus on first. Build out the basic infrastructure for your business, right? Your staff, your vendors, your partnerships. Build them out first, and then send people to your business so that you can serve them. Right, is one rule. I think InterSwitch has done a great job, and I hope it continues to grow stronger and stronger as a representation of African enterprise, right? And that's me. I'm driven by just, you know, the African enterprise. This video is not getting too long, but just a quick second example is M-Pesa. Yeah, M-Pesa is in Kenya, right? Currently, they are $2.5 to $3 billion annual revenue. Insane. Yeah. Okay, no, the group, the actual group that owns M-Pesa, which is Safaricom, 2.5 to 3.6 billion. Now, M-Pesa is responsible for about 35 to 40% of that. That's not too bad. So if you look at 2.5 billion, you're looking at 250 million times 3, so almost almost a third of that. So about $1 billion in sales, in revenue, right? They have 30 million active users only in Kenya, right? And then they are similar to InterSwitch. In Kenya, back in some years ago, many Kenyans did not have bank accounts, right? And so they depended on logistics companies, drivers, and bus users or individuals to take money from point A to point B. Now you can imagine all the stress with that. Now, apart from how quickly the money gets or how slowly the money gets to the destination, and also the safety, people are losing their money, and stuff like that. These guys answered the question: how do I move money, or how do we move money quickly in Kenya, right? And so today, 90% of Kenyan adult population use M-Pesa. Yeah, and they're beginning to get into some other African countries, Tanzania, Mozambique, and others. So they started with one use case, and that question was, how do I move money safely and quickly from one person to another? And then they only expanded after answering that question. So back again to your business. What is your core business? What's the core solution you're bringing? Now I'm looking for more customers, and you can only succeed by more customers. But the question is, if I had all the customers I wanted and I had the revenue I wanted, is that what will make my business succeed? If you don't have the infrastructure, if you've not built in the systems, if you've not built in the networks, if you've not built in the supply chain, that means that your business can continue even in hard times. Then you're in trouble. So be like the hare that observes, that spends the time building the infrastructure. And I'll just leave this one more thought that I learned from a guy called Jim Collins. It's from a book that you must have. It's a book called Good to Great, right? And he talked about that a business, that the best businesses make sure they did not grow faster than they were able to have the right people sitting in the right seats in their business. And so he talks about the level 5 leadership, right, and the level 5 leaders. And it's not about managers or no, it's individual leaders as well as managers. He talked about disciplined people that have disciplined thoughts and also engage in disciplined action. That those are the people that actually produce extraordinary results in any business. And when you find those kind of people, disciplined thoughts, disciplined actions, you now need to make sure that they are sitting in the right seat. So you don't take someone who is an expert or great at selling or being out there, making sure that promoting your business, and you want to make them to run the business, the day-to-day, the operations. That business might not succeed. Or you take someone from operations and try to place them in the seat of someone who loves to sell, right? You've got to understand your people. So have the right people and put them in the right seat, right? That's the most important thing. And Jim Collins said that you should not let your business grow faster than you're able to get the right people and put them in the right seats. So I hope this kind of ties in nicely there. And you've got to think about your business. Which one am I? Am I a hare or am I a hyena? It's great to go with speed, but just make sure that as you're going with speed, as you're pouring the funding in, that you have the rails, the infrastructure, the systems, the processes all lined up in your business to hold up all that the growth noise, as it were. All right. Until next time, be the hare. Cheers.